One of my favourite films of the 1980s was a teenager comedy called Wayne's World, in which Wayne was a dim-witted but very cool young man who was a big fan of heavy metal rock music, and his even more dim-witted and much less cool friend Garth. I think as teenagers we all hoped that we were Wayne but secretly feared we might have been Garth. Anyway, the plot of the movie doesn't matter very much, but towards the end, one of the climactic scenes is where Wayne and Garth meet their idol, their hero, rock music, heavy metal legend, singer Alice Cooper. And when they meet him, after a whole film where they're always kind of talking big and talking us up and pretending to be important, when they meet Alice Cooper, they get down on their knees and they bow down before him and touch the ground and say, we're not worthy, we're scum, we suck. And that little phrase, we're not worthy, we're scum, became a bit of a meme for teenage boys at the time. I wonder though if you've ever felt that, not worthy, in the face of someone or something beautiful, magnificent, or extraordinary. That's certainly the experience we have in the first reading with Isaiah, when he has a vision of God in heaven, and that Peter has when he meets Jesus by the shore of the lake. So let's have a look at those together, starting with St. Peter. Because that experience of unworthiness is really key to Peter's encounter with Jesus. This is the call story. This is where Jesus calls Peter to come and become one of his initial disciples, eventually apostle, eventually leader of the apostles. And we're probably familiar with the format of the story where we hear Jesus explicitly say, hey Peter, come follow me. You might notice we don't hear those words in this version of the story here in Luke's Gospel. Instead, all there is this encounter with Jesus, where Jesus says, Peter, throw your nets over, you'll catch fish. And the extraordinary catch of fish, the fill fills two boats worth of nets to overflowing. And we read that Peter and his companions are so overwhelmed by this, they don't know what to make of it, that the response that Peter then has to Jesus is, leave me, Lord, I'm a sinful man. And it's this encounter with something extraordinary, this catch of fish, so far beyond being natural, so far beyond anything they've ever had before, elicits this response in Peter where he realizes, oh my goodness, this person, Jesus, is someone or something amazing. And his response is to recognize, by contrast, his own unworthiness, his own sinfulness, and to back away, saying, Lord, leave me. You're too good for me. I can't be part of this. And notice the same thing happens in the first reading, the call of the prophet Isaiah as well, where Isaiah has a vision that he is in the heavens, and yet he also has this very common Old Testament theme of a human, a mortal, cannot look at God. If we see God, we have to hide our face. And so Isaiah says, woe is me, I am an unclean man with unclean lips, and I've seen God. And so in both cases, their unworthiness is actually a hallmark of being a genuine encounter with God. But it's what they do next which becomes important. Because I think we too might have that same unworthiness from time to time. That unworthiness might manifest in a relationship. It might be that we perhaps we have a friendship or a romance where we just sense the other person in some ways so much better than us. Why would they want me? And we're a little bit overwhelmed by that, with our own unworthiness. Perhaps we've had a success such as Peter had, a business success, or a blessing of some sort that's so extraordinary that we know we don't deserve it. Or perhaps we've had a spiritual encounter, something which happens directly into our hearts, an experience of God personally and directly, where we too recognize, oh my goodness, I'm not worthy of this. And I'm not going to say you're lovely, you're fine, you're worthy, because in fact, that sense of unworthiness is often accurate. Because in the face of God, when we meet the true and living God, we are always unworthy of that encounter. We can never deserve or earn God's favor or God's love. So it's fair enough to say, I'm not worthy of that. But then there's two ways we can approach that unworthiness. And one is that we back away. And that's what Peter wanted to do. He wanted to back away and say, Lord, leave me. I can't be part of this. I'm not good enough. And that's not a good response. I must say, over the years, I've in talking with many, many men who've felt drawn either to priesthood or diaconate, they always have that sense of unworthiness. And they think that means they're not called. But I have to say, in fact, that unworthiness is a genuine hallmark of genuine calling. People who have a genuine calling to God recognize they are not worthy. They're not called to be priests or deacons, religious perhaps, because they're so good and so worthy. No. It's because God loves us so much, despite our unworthiness, that we can respond. And so in Isaiah, we see that God provides the remedy. Isaiah recognized his unworthiness, and yet the angel comes down with a hot coal and touches his lips to not to burn him, but to purify him, and says, "See, I put my words in your mouth, and I make you pure." And so Isaiah accepts that purification as an invitation to now follow up. And when he hears God say, "Who shall I send? Who will take up this mission?" Isaiah responds saying, "Here I am, Lord, send me." And we know those words, "Here I am, Lord," are picked up in a hymn that we sing often at Mass. In the same way in the Gospel, when Peter manifests his unworthiness, his desire for Jesus to leave him because of who he is, Jesus says, "Peter, do not be afraid. From now on, it's men that you'll catch." But first off, Jesus says, "Don't be afraid. Yes, I know you're not worthy, but I want you here. I call you because I love you." And when Peter accepts that, Jesus gives him a mission. "I'll make you a fisher of men. It's men that you will catch." And we know that Peter and his companions leave everything and follow Jesus, and the rest is history. So what about us? Have you had, or even maybe have now, a sense of God's awesomeness? A sense of God blessing you in some external way or some internal way, which is so extraordinary, you know it's not of your doing. And think about, what is your response to that? Is your response to back away and go, no, I can't do that? Because I've met many people in church who say, "Oh, I could never read at Mass, I could never give communion, I could never be on the pastoral council." Even those relatively small things, people think, "Oh no, that's for the special people, the holy people, that's not for me." No, if you recognize that you have some unworthiness, you're exactly the kind of person I want in my church. You're the kind of person I want in ministry. Because whenever someone says to me, particularly about their discerning religious life, priest or diaconate, "I'm not good enough," I say, "Good. I've been a priest for 25 years. I'm not good enough either." But it's our recognition, our acceptance, it's God's goodness, God's grace, God's love, not our own power. Then we're in the right relationship with him, and we become the right people to respond. So if you do sense God is calling you in some way, but you feel like you're not good enough, lean in to God's love. Accept God's love and God's invitation. Say yes to him. And like Peter, who left everything behind to follow Jesus, we may not need to leave everything behind, at least not all at once. That leaving all behind is a lifelong project, but it begins with the first yes. The yes to say, "Jesus, I accept your love for me, your invitation, your call. I want to be your follower. I want to be your disciple."